Let's talk about one of the biggest questions we can ask ourselves. It's something people have been thinking about forever, really. What actually gives a life meaning? What makes it feel valuable?
I mean, really think about it for a second. If you had to boil your whole life down to just a few core things, what are the forces that really drive you? What makes it all worthwhile? It's a huge question, and today we're going to explore it through the eyes of a truly brilliant mind.
All right, so our guide on this journey is Bertrand Russell. You might know him as a philosopher, a mathematician, basically one of the sharpest thinkers of the 20th century. And he's spent a lot of time wrestling with this exact question of what really matters in life. And he didn't have some vague, fuzzy answer. He was crystal clear about it. In the very beginning of his autobiography, he lays it all out. He talks about three core drivers that shaped his entire life. He said they were like great winds that just blew him all over the place, sometimes through oceans of anguish, to the very verge of despair. So what were these powerful forces? Well, the first two passions he talks about are kind of intertwined. For him, they represented an ascent. They were these forces that just lifted him up, that took him to these incredible heights of joy and, well, understanding. Let's dig into them. So, first up is his longing for love, and he breaks it down into three amazing parts. First, he sought it for the sheer ecstasy of it, a joy so intense, he said he'd trade his entire life for just a few hours of it. Wow. Second, it was about escaping what he called a terrible loneliness. And finally, it was something more, something transcendent, like getting a little glimpse of the heaven that poets and saints have always tried to put into words. Now, running right alongside that search for love was an equally powerful passion for knowledge. And for Russell, this wasn't just about memorizing facts. No, it was about a much deeper kind of understanding. He wanted to understand people, to understand the universe. Why do the stars shine? And he wanted to grasp the beautiful hidden logic of mathematics that secretly runs our world. So here's the key takeaway for this part. For Russell, both love and knowledge were elevating. They were passions that literally pulled him upward, away from the everyday stuff, and gave him these incredible, almost heavenly experiences. But that's not the whole story. There was a third passion, and this one acted as a powerful anchor. And this brings us to the other side of his philosophy. This is the great contrast, right? The force that gave his life balance against all that blissful floating upwards. And he called it pity. Just as love and knowledge were pulling him up towards the heavens, he said pity always brought him crashing back down to earth. It was this grounding force, a constant nagging reminder of the harsh realities of the world outside his own joy. And this wasn't just some abstract idea he thought about. It was something he felt deeply and personally. He described it so vividly, saying the suffering of others wasn't just something he saw, it was something he felt echoing inside of him. And he wasn't talking about some vague sadness either. He was haunted by very specific, awful images. Children starving, people being tortured, old people being abandoned and hated, and that whole silent world of loneliness and pain. He said all this suffering made a mockery of what human life should be. And because he felt like he could never do enough to help, he suffered right along with them. Okay, so we have these two opposing forces, right? The upward pull of love and knowledge, and the downward pull of pity for suffering. To really understand how these two connect, it actually helps to bring in another great thinker, Martin Luther King Jr. He gave us a really useful way to talk about a specific kind of love that feels very, very close to what Russell was describing. Dr. King often spoke about the concept of agape. It's an ancient Greek term for a very particular kind of love. It's not about romance or even friendship. It's a selfless, unconditional goodwill towards all people. It's a love that just flows outward without needing a reason and without expecting anything back. This chart makes the difference really clear. So most of us know Eros, that's romantic, passionate love. And we know Philia, which is that reciprocal love between friends. But agape? That's a whole different category. It's a redemptive, understanding love for all of humanity. And when you look at the core qualities of agape, it sounds almost exactly like what was driving Russell's pity, doesn't it? It's all about the good of another person. It doesn't waste time deciding who's worthy of help. It recognizes that we are all connected, that we're all in this together. This is basically a perfect description of Russell's unbearable pity for the suffering of mankind. So, after a long life governed by these really intense, sometimes conflicting passions, the high of love and knowledge, and the low of this profound pity,
What was Russell's final take? Was it all worth it?
His conclusion is just incredible. He says, despite that ocean of anguish, despite all the suffering he witnessed and felt inside himself, he found his life to be profoundly worth living. That push and pull between the heavens and the earth didn't break him. It actually made his life rich, meaningful, and something he would happily do all over again. And that brings us right back to where we started. Russell found his answer in love, knowledge, and an unbearable pity for mankind. So the question is now for you. If you had to name the simple but overwhelmingly strong passions that govern your life, what would they be?